Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Terra's Voice and watched the stars drift by through the main window. His ship moved slowly through space, toward the Kethva homeworld where they would meet with alien diplomats. The mission was simple like all the others before it. They would follow the rules set by the Galactic Federation and speak only when spoken to. They would use the approved words and phrases that the Zephyrian Empire had given them years ago. Jake did not like these rules, but he followed them because that was his job. He had been a commander for 10 years, now, and every mission felt the same. The aliens they met always seemed nervous and afraid to say much beyond the basic greetings and trade agreements. Sometimes Jake wondered if there was more they wanted to say but could not. Dr. Lisa Hayes walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad filled with translation files. She was the ship's expert on alien languages and had spent months preparing for this meeting with the Kethva. Lisa had always been curious about how different species really thought and felt, but the translation protocols only allowed her to work with approved word lists and formal phrases. "Commander, the Kethva ship is responding to our greeting signal," said Communications Officer Kate Brown from her station. "They are sending the standard welcome message and requesting permission to begin formal talks." Jake nodded and settled into his captain's chair. Chief Engineer Ben Carter joined them on the bridge to observe the meeting. Ben had worked on dozens of alien ships during repair missions and had noticed that most alien crews seemed to watch their words carefully around human visitors. He often wondered what they might say if they felt free to speak openly. Screen showed the interior of the Kethva ship. 3 insect-like beings with multiple arms and large compound eyes sat at a curved table. Their translator spoke in the flat mechanical voice that all species used for official communications. "Greetings, human vessel Terra's Voice. We welcome you to our space according to Protocol 7 of the Galactic Federation Charter. We are prepared to discuss trade agreements for mineral resources as previously arranged." Jake responded with the required formal greeting. "Greetings, Kethva representatives. We thank you for your welcome and confirm our readiness to begin trade discussions." According to established protocols, Lisa watched the aliens carefully during the exchange. She noticed that the 3 Kethva kept looking around their own ship, as if checking to see who might be listening. When one of them started to gesture with extra arms, the others quickly moved to stop the motion. Something was wrong, but Lisa could not figure out what it was. The trade talks went exactly as planned. The Kethva needed rare metals for their technology, and humans needed the crystal formations that grew on their desert worlds. Numbers were exchanged and agreements were made using the same words that had been used in hundreds of similar meetings. But Lisa kept watching the aliens and seeing small signs that they wanted to say more. During a break in the talks, Lisa tried something different. Instead of using the formal translator, she spoke directly to the youngest-looking Kethva using simple words. "Do you like working on ships?" she asked in a friendly tone. The young alien's compound eyes seemed to brighten and it started to respond. But the older Kethva quickly cut in with the standard phrase about keeping discussions focused on approved topics. Lisa saw fear in the young one's movements as it stepped back from the communication panel. Security. Chief Amy Rodriguez had been watching from her position near the door. She had good instincts about danger, and right now those instincts were telling her that the Kethva were afraid of something or someone. The fear was not directed at the humans, but at some unseen threat that made them careful about every word they spoke. After the meeting ended and the connection was closed, Ben Carter spoke first. "Did anyone else notice how nervous they seemed?" he asked. "I have worked with dozens of different species, and I have never seen aliens act so carefully around their own equipment." Lisa nodded. They wanted to say more. "I could tell by their body language and the way they kept starting to make gestures, then stopping themselves. Something is preventing them from speaking freely." Jake looked out at the stars again and thought about all the meetings he had attended over the years. Every alien species they met followed the same careful patterns of speech. Every conversation stayed within the same narrow boundaries. He had always assumed this was just how galactic diplomacy worked, but now he began to wonder if there was another reason. "Set course for Nexus Station," Jake ordered. "We need supplies, and I want to spend some time observing how different species interact when they think no one important is watching." As Terra's voice changed direction toward the busy trading station, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He was going to start paying attention to what the aliens were not saying instead of just focusing on the words they were allowed to speak. Something was happening in the galaxy that humans did not understand, and Jake intended to find out what it was. Nexus Station hung in space like a giant metal flower with dozens of docking arms reaching out to hold ships from across the galaxy. Jake Morrison watched through the bridge windows as Terra's voice approached one of the smaller docking ports. The station was always busy, but today it seemed even more crowded than usual with ships from species he had never seen before. Dr. Lisa Hayes had spent the 3-day journey to Nexus Station studying old historical records that she had downloaded from the Federation archives. Most of the files were boring reports about trade agreements and territorial boundaries, but buried deep in the data she found references to something called the Resonance. The files were incomplete and many sections had been marked as corrupted or lost, but what remained was fascinating, Commander Lisa said as she entered the bridge carrying her datapad. I found something interesting in the historical archives. There are references to an ancient civilization that used to exist across the galaxy thousands of years ago. They called themselves the Resonance, and apparently they had completely different ways of communicating with each other. Jake turned from the navigation display where he had been working with Officer Tony Kim to plan their docking approach. What kind of different ways? He asked. Lisa looked at her notes. The records are not clear, but they mentioned something about harmonic patterns and emotional resonance. It sounds like they could share feelings and complex ideas directly instead of just using words. The files say they achieved incredible levels of cooperation between different species. Ben Carter looked up from his engineering console. What happened to them? He asked. That is the strange part, Lisa replied. According to the official records, they destroyed themselves about 3,000 years ago due to chaotic communication practices, but the timeline does not make sense. The records show they were advancing rapidly and solving major galactic problems right up until they supposedly collapsed. Then suddenly the Zephyrian Empire appeared and took control of most galactic communication systems. Tony Kim finished the docking sequence and turned to join the conversation. You think the official story is wrong? He asked. I think someone does not want us to know what really happened, Lisa said. Too many files are missing or corrupted, and the ones that remain contradict each other. Someone has been editing the Historical Records Security Chief Amy Rodriguez entered the bridge as the ship settled into its docking berth. Commander, we have been cleared to go aboard the station, she said. I recommend we split up and observe how different species interact. In the common areas, if something strange is happening, we might notice it better if we are not all together. Jake agreed with the plan. Amy would patrol the main commercial district while Ben checked the technical areas where engineers from different species worked. Together, Tony would monitor the communication centers and Lisa would visit the archives and information exchange areas. Jake himself would spend time in the diplomatic quarter where official meetings took place. 2 hours later, Amy found herself in a crowded marketplace watching alien merchants from a dozen different species conduct business. Most of the transactions followed the same formal patterns she had seen everywhere else, but occasionally she noticed something different. When merchants thought no one was watching, they used hand signals and quick gestures that seemed to convey much more information than their spoken words. Amy positioned herself near a fruit vendor and pretended to examine the strange alien produce while listening to conversations around her. Two crystal-like beings were discussing shipping routes using the standard trade vocabulary, but their crystalline bodies were pulsing with different colors in complex patterns. Amy realized they were having a completely different conversation, with light signals while speaking the approved words out loud. At the same time, Ben Carter was in the engineering section watching repair crews work on various ships. He noticed that alien technicians worked much more efficiently when human observers were not present. When they thought they were alone, they used complex hand signals and body movements to coordinate their efforts. The moment a human appeared, they switched back to verbal instructions and their work slowed down significantly. Tony Kim made an even more disturbing discovery in the communication centers. He found monitoring equipment that was not supposed to exist, according to Federation regulations. Hidden scanners were recording every conversation that took place on the station and transmitting the data to Zephyrian Empire databases. The surveillance was so complete that even private conversations in locked rooms were being monitored. Lisa Hayes had the biggest breakthrough of all in the station archives. While searching for more information about the Resonance, she discovered that many historical files had been deliberately altered. Using advanced analysis techniques, she found traces of the original text hidden beneath the edited versions. The real history told a completely different story about what had happened 3,000 years ago. According to the original records, the Resonance civilization had not destroyed itself. Instead, it had been systematically eliminated by the early Zephyrian Empire in a campaign that the original historians called the Great Silencing. The Zephyrians had viewed the Resonance communication methods as a threat to their authority, because species that could truly understand each other were much harder to control and manipulate. The original files revealed that many Resonance species had not been completely wiped out, but had gone into hiding. They had maintained their traditional communication methods in secret, while pretending to follow Zephyrian protocols in public. The files contained hints about hidden colonies and secret networks that might still exist in remote parts of the galaxy. When the crew met back on Terra's Voice that evening, they shared their discoveries. Jake listened to each report with growing amazement and anger. The Galactic Federation that humans had joined was not what it appeared to be. The communication protocols they followed were not designed to help different species understand each other, but to prevent real understanding from developing. So what do we do now? Amy asked after everyone had finished their reports. Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people who had joined Starfleet to explore the galaxy and make contact with alien civilizations. Instead, they had been turned into unwitting agents of a system designed to keep those civilizations isolated and afraid. We are going to find these hidden resonance survivors, Jake said finally. If there are species out there who still remember how to really communicate, we need to learn from them. And if the Zephyrian Empire has been lying to us about galactic history, then it is time someone started telling the truth. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. I think I know where to start looking, she said. The corrupted files contained coordinates for several systems that officially do not exist. If any resonance survivors are still out there, they would probably be hiding in places that are not supposed to be on any maps. Terra's voice traveled through empty space toward coordinates that, according to official Federation maps, led to nothing but cosmic dust and radiation. Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair watching the sensor readings as they approached the supposedly barren system. Dr. Lisa Hayes had convinced him to investigate one of the hidden locations she had found in the corrupted historical files, but so far their long-range scanners showed only empty space. Commander, I am detecting some unusual energy readings, said Tony Kim from the navigation station. There appears to be something large hiding behind the radiation field of that dead star. The energy signature does not match any known Federation technology. Ben Carter worked frantically at his engineering console, trying to filter out the cosmic interference. I am reading artificial structures, he announced. Multiple ships or possibly a space station. They are using some kind of masking technology to hide from standard sensors. Amy Rodriguez moved to the tactical station and began running security scans. Whatever is out there, they know we are here, she said. I am detecting focused energy beams scanning our ship, but they are not hostile patterns. It feels more like they are trying to figure out who we are. Jake made a decision that could change everything. Instead of following standard Federation first contact protocols, he decided to try something different. Lisa, can you modify our communication array to broadcast on multiple frequencies at the same time? I want to send a message that shows we are not following normal Zephyrian communication rules. Lisa's eyes lit up with understanding. I can program the array to send the same basic greeting message using different harmonic patterns and emotional tones. If there really are resonance survivors out there, they might recognize that we are trying to communicate differently. She worked quickly to modify the ship's communication system while Ben helped her bypass the normal Federation translation protocols. Instead of sending a single formal message, they prepared to broadcast their greeting using 7 different communication methods, including musical tones, mathematical patterns, and even basic emotional concepts translated into energy frequencies. Broadcasting. Now, Lisa announced as she activated the modified array. The message went out across space, carrying not just words, but also the feeling behind those words. They were not demanding compliance or asserting authority, but simply asking if anyone wanted to talk. The response came faster than anyone expected. The empty space around them suddenly filled with ships of designs that no human had ever seen before. The vessels were beautiful and strange, made from what looked like living crystal that pulsed with internal light. As the ships appeared, a new kind of message reached Terra's voice. It was not words or sounds, but something much deeper. Everyone on the bridge felt a gentle presence touching their minds. Not intruding, but asking permission to communicate. The sensation was warm and welcoming, but also cautious and afraid. Jake realized they were experiencing the emotional state of whoever was trying to make contact. My name is Shard of Ancient Song, came a voice that seemed to speak directly into their thoughts. I am a resonance keeper of the Melodian people. We have been hiding in this place for over 2,000 years, waiting for someone who could hear our true voice. Are you the humans we have heard whispers about? The ones who still remember how to listen. Jake spoke aloud, knowing somehow that his words and feelings would be translated and understood. Yes, we are humans and we want to learn. We have discovered that our galaxy is not what we were told it was. We want to understand what really happened and how we can help. The crystalline ships moved closer, and Jake could see that they were indeed made from some kind of living material that responded to the thoughts and emotions of their crews. Through the transparent sections he could see beings that looked like walking crystal formations, their bodies made from the same material as their ships and glowing with the same internal light. "Come aboard our sanctuary," Shadowvention Song continued. "But know that by doing so you will learn truths that the Zephyrian Empire has killed to keep secret. Once you understand what was taken from the galaxy, you will never be able to pretend ignorance again." Jake looked around at his crew and saw determination in every face. "We accept," he said simply. The docking process was unlike anything they had experienced before. Instead of mechanical connections, the Melodian ship seemed to grow an organic tunnel that connected directly to Terra's voice. As they walked through the tunnel, Lisa noticed that the walls were covered with patterns that seemed to shift and change in response to their emotions. The interior of the Melodian ship was breathtaking. The walls, floors, and ceiling were all made from the same living crystal that formed gentle curves and flowing shapes instead of straight lines and sharp angles. Soft music seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, created by the crystal itself as it resonated with the thoughts and feelings of everyone present. Shard-of-Ancient-Song stood waiting for them in a large chamber at the heart of the ship. He was tall and elegant, with a body made from pale blue crystal that reflected light in complex patterns. When he moved, music followed him, soft harmonies that conveyed meaning beyond words. "Welcome to the last free sanctuary of the Melodian people," he said, and his voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We are one of many species that survived the great silencing by learning to hide our true nature. For 3,000 years we have pretended to be extinct, while secretly maintaining the old ways of communication." Lisa stepped forward, filled with curiosity and excitement. "How many species survived?" she asked. "How many are still hiding? More than the Empire knows, but fewer than once filled the galaxy with song." Shard-of-Ancient Song replied sadly. "The Santhera who speak through shared emotions, the Grovikin who think as one through root networks that span entire planets, the Lumina who paint thoughts with patterns of light, dozens of species that the galaxy believes are lost forever." Ben Carter examined the crystal walls with an engineer's eye. "This technology is incredible," he said. "Your ships are not just machines, they are living extensions of your people." "How do they work?" "They work through understanding," the Melodian explained. "When minds connect truly and completely, the boundary between self and tool disappears. Your people have this potential, but you have been taught to build walls between yourselves and your technology instead of bridges." Amy Rodriguez asked the question they all needed answered. "Why are you trusting us?" she said. "How do you know?" "We will not report your location to the Federation." Shard-of-Ancient Song's crystal body pulsed with colors that somehow conveyed amusement and hope. "Because we can feel your intentions," he said. "True communication reveals not just thoughts, but the heart behind those thoughts. You came here seeking truth and connection, not conquest or control. Besides, we have been watching your species. Since you joined the galaxy, humans still remember how to listen even if you do not yet understand what you are hearing." Jake felt a moment of perfect clarity. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "Help us reconnect the scattered survivors," Shard-of-Ancient replied. "Your ships can travel to places we cannot reach without revealing ourselves. Your people can learn our communication methods and teach them to others. Together we can begin to heal the wounds that the Empire carved into the heart of galactic civilization." As they talked, more Melodians entered the chamber, and Jake began to understand the true scope of what had been lost. These beings could share complex thoughts and emotions instantly, work together with perfect coordination, and solve problems by combining their different perspectives into something greater than the sum of its parts. For the first time in years, Jake felt hope for the future of the galaxy. Terra's voice had become something new during the weeks following their contact with the Melodians. Ben Carter had worked with Shard-of-Ancient Song to install communication devices throughout the ship that could translate not just words, but emotions and intentions between different species. The technology was revolutionary, but it also made everyone aboard realize how much they had been missing in all their previous conversations. Jake Morrison stood in the ship's main meeting room, watching as Dr. Lisa Hayes demonstrated the new communication system to a group of alien visitors. 3 Santhara floated in the center of the room, their translucent bodies glowing with shifting colors that reflected their emotional states. Unlike the nervous formal exchanges they were used to, this conversation flowed naturally with ideas and feelings shared freely between species. "The harmony is beautiful," said the lead Santhara, her words accompanied by waves of warmth and joy that everyone in the room could feel. For so long we have hidden our true voices, speaking only the cold mechanical words that the Empire allows. To share thoughts and emotions again feels like waking from a terrible dream. Amy Rodriguez monitored the conversation from her security station, but for the first time in years she felt no tension or danger. The new communication methods made deception almost impossible because hostile intentions were immediately obvious to everyone involved. Trust developed naturally when beings could feel each other's genuine desire for connection and understanding. The Santhara had been the second hidden species that Terra's voice had contacted using coordinates provided by the Melodians. They were followed by the Grovican plant-like beings who communicated through biochemical signals and root networks that could span entire continents. Each species they met added new elements to their growing understanding of how communication could work when it was not restricted by Empire protocols. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the Federation," announced Communications Officer Kate Brown. "It is Admiral Peter Kane, and he is requesting immediate private communication." Jake nodded and moved to his ready room where he could speak without the alien visitors overhearing. The Admiral's face appeared on the small screen, but Jake noticed immediately that something was different about his expression and body language. "Commander Morrison, your recent activities have attracted attention from Zephyrian overseers," Kane said using the formal tone required for official communications. But his eyes and subtle gestures conveyed a completely different message. One that Jake was now trained to recognize thanks to his work with the Resonance survivors. Kane was warning them that their communications were being monitored while simultaneously telling him to continue his mission. The Admiral's careful choice of words and emphasis patterns indicated that he was part of some kind of resistance movement within the Federation itself. "I understand," Admiral Jake replied, matching Kane's formal tone while using similar subtle signals to indicate his own understanding. "We will adjust our activities to comply with Federation protocols after the call ended." Jake returned to the meeting room where Lisa was explaining human communication concepts to their alien guests. The Santhara were fascinated by the human ability to convey complex meanings through body language and vocal tone while speaking completely different words out loud. "Your species has natural talent for layered communication," observed the lead Santhara. "You instinctively understand that meaning exists on multiple levels simultaneously. This is why the Resonance Keepers believed humans might be the key to reconnecting the scattered survivors." Tony Kim entered the room carrying a datapad filled with navigation charts. "Commander, I have plotted courses to 17 different systems, where the Melodians believe other survivors might be hiding," he said. "But several of those locations are deep inside Zephyrian-controlled space. Getting there without being detected will be extremely difficult." Ben Carter looked up from the alien communication device he was modifying. "I might have a solution," he said. "The Gravican have shared some interesting technologies with me. They can create biological computers that think and adapt instead of just following programmed instructions. If we combine that with melodian harmonic masking, we might be able to make Terra's voice effectively invisible to Empire sensors." Over the following days, the ship was transformed into something that no human vessel had ever been before. Grovican biotechnology merged seamlessly with human engineering, while melodian harmonic systems created fields of controlled energy that could bend sensor readings and make the ship appear to be something completely different. Lisa worked with representatives from all three species to develop what she called the Harmony Protocols, a new framework for interspecies communication that preserved the unique aspects of each species while enabling true understanding between them. Unlike the restrictive Empire protocols that limited expression, the Harmony Protocols enhanced and celebrated the diversity of communication methods. The first real test came when they approached a heavily monitored system where the Melodians believed a group of Lumina survivors might be hiding. The Lumina were energy beings who communicated through complex patterns of light and had been among the first targets of the Great Silencing because their thoughts could travel instantly across vast distances. Empire patrol ships detected, announced Amy from her security station. 3 Zephyrian cruisers are conducting systematic scans of the outer system. Jake felt his heart rate increase but forced himself to remain calm. "Activate all masking systems," he ordered. "Let us see if our new technology really works." The ship became something else as the combined alien technologies took effect. To outside sensors, Terra's voice now appeared to be a small automated cargo hauler carrying routine supplies between mining operations. The transformation was so complete that even Jake had trouble believing they were still aboard the same vessel. They slipped past the Zephyrian patrols without detection and approached the coordinates where the Lumina were supposedly hiding. At first their sensors detected nothing, but as they got closer, Ben's modified equipment began picking up subtle energy patterns that matched Lumina communication signatures. "There," Lisa said, pointing to what looked like empty space near a small asteroid. "I am detecting organized light patterns that are too complex to be natural phenomena." The contact with the Lumina was the most challenging yet, because their communication method was completely unlike anything humans had experienced before. The Lumina existed as pure energy and spoke by creating three-dimensional patterns of light that conveyed meaning through color, movement, and mathematical relationships. With help from the Harmony protocols, Lisa was able to establish basic communication with the hidden Lumina colony. What she learned changed everything they thought they knew about the scope of the Empire's control. "The Lumina have been monitoring Zephyrian communications across the galaxy," she reported to Jake after hours of difficult translation work. "They know the locations of dozens of other survivor communities, and they have been trying to coordinate resistance activities for centuries. But without ships that can travel safely through Empire space, they have been unable to make contact with most of the other groups." Jake realized that Terra's voice had become more than just a ship. It was now the first mobile embassy capable of reconnecting the scattered resonance survivors. They had the technology to travel undetected through Empire-controlled space, and the communication abilities needed to establish contact with species that had been hiding for thousands of years. "Set course for the next survivor community," he ordered. "We have work to do." But as Terra's voice departed the Lumina system, Jake could not shake the feeling that their activities would soon attract more attention than they could handle. The Empire had maintained control for 3,000 years by preventing exactly the kind of connections they were now making. Sooner or later there would be consequences for their actions. That consequence came sooner than expected when Amy detected a massive Zephyrian fleet moving toward the Santhera homeworld. The Empire had discovered the renewed communication activities and was preparing to eliminate any species that refused to return to the old restrictions. The revolution was about to begin, whether they were ready or not. The emergency alert came at 0300 hours ship time, when most of Terra's voice crew was sleeping. Jake Morrison rushed to the bridge, still pulling on his uniform, as Amy Rodriguez briefed him on the situation. Long-range sensors had detected a massive Zephyrian battle fleet approaching the Santhera homeworld with clear hostile intent. "How many ships?" Jake asked, as he settled into his command chair, and tried to process the implications of what he was seeing on the tactical display. "At least 40 heavy cruisers plus support vessels," Amy replied grimly. "It is the largest Empire fleet movement we have ever recorded. They are not trying to hide their intentions." Dr. Lisa Hayes entered the bridge carrying a datapad filled with intercepted communications. "I have been monitoring Empire transmissions," she said. "They are calling this Operation Silent Dawn, and their orders are to eliminate any species that refuses to abandon what they call irregular communication practices." Ben Carter worked frantically at his engineering station trying to boost their long-range communication array. "Commander, if we are going to warn the Santhera and coordinate some kind of response, we need to contact all the survivor communities simultaneously. The new harmonic communication system can reach multiple species at once, but I need more power, Tony." Kim was already plotting jump coordinates to reach the Santhara system before the Empire fleet arrived. "We can get there in 6 hours if we push the engines beyond normal limits," he announced. "But even if we warn them, what can a few hidden colonies do against 40 battlecruisers?" Jake stared at the tactical display and made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Send a message using the Harmony protocols to every Resonance survivor community we have contacted," he ordered. "Tell them that the Empire has declared war on anyone who refuses to follow their communication restrictions. Tell them it is time to choose between freedom and extinction." Lisa worked with Ben to boost the communication array while Amy prepared Terra's voice for what might be their final mission. The message that went out across the galaxy was unlike anything that had been transmitted in 3,000 years. Instead of cold mechanical words, it carried the full emotional weight of the moment. The fear and anger and desperate hope of beings who had been hiding in shadows for millennia. Response was immediate and overwhelming. Hidden communities that had not spoken to each other for centuries suddenly reconnected through the Harmony protocols. The Melodians emerged from their sanctuary systems, bringing ships that sang with crystal harmonics. The Grovakeen awakened ancient defensive networks that spanned entire planets. The Lumina began coordinating instantaneous communication across impossible distances. But it was the humans who provided the spark that turned resistance into revolution. Admiral Peter Kane revealed himself as the leader of a secret network within the Federation that had been working for decades to undermine Zephyrian control. Entire Federation fleets declared independence and began broadcasting the Harmony protocols to every species in their sectors. "Commander, we are receiving responses from everywhere," Kate Brown announced from her communication station. "Species that we thought were extinct are revealing themselves. Technologies that we never imagined are being shared freely. The entire galaxy is waking up." Jake watched as the tactical display filled with new contacts as hidden fleets and secret colonies revealed themselves across known space. But his attention remained focused on the Santhara homeworld, where the Empire fleet was still approaching with deadly intent. "Take us to the Santhara system," he ordered. "Maximum speed." Terra's voice arrived at the Santhara homeworld just as the first Zephyrian ships entered the outer system. But they were not alone. A fleet of Melodian crystal ships had already arrived and taken defensive positions around the planet. Their vessels sang with harmonic frequencies that interfered with Empire targeting systems and created fields of protective energy. "Incoming transmission from the Zephyrian fleet," Commander Amy announced. "He is demanding that all non-Empire vessels withdraw immediately or face destruction." Jake opened a communication channel, but instead of using the formal Empire protocols, he responded with the Harmony protocols, broadcasting his words with the full emotional weight of his convictions. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of Terra's Voice," he said. "We are here to protect peaceful beings who want nothing more than the right to communicate freely with their neighbors. If you attack them, you will have to go through us." The Zephyrian commander's response was swift and violent. Energy beams lanced out from the Empire cruisers toward the defending ships, but something unexpected happened. The combined harmonic fields generated by the Melodian vessels and the Harmony Protocol broadcasts created interference patterns that disrupted the Empire weapons systems. "Their shields are fluctuating," Ben reported with amazement. "The harmonic resonance is overloading their energy systems. They designed their technology to work in isolation, but it cannot handle the complexity of true cooperative communication." What followed was not really a battle in the traditional sense. As more resonance survivor ships arrived, they brought technologies and capabilities that the Empire had never encountered before. Gravetchikan bioships that could repair themselves faster than they could be damaged. Lumina energy patterns that turned Empire targeting computers against their own ships. Santhara emotional broadcasts that caused Empire crews to question their orders and remember their own suppressed desires for connection. But the real turning point came when Dr. Lisa Hayes made contact with the ancient resonance archives hidden deep beneath the Santhara homeworld. Working with Melodian harmonic specialists and Lumina energy manipulators, she activated technology that had been dormant for 3,000 years. The Great Resonator was the ultimate achievement of the original Resonance civilization. It was a galaxy-spanning communication network that could connect every sentient mind with every other, creating a web of understanding that made deception and manipulation impossible. The Zephyrian Empire had spent centuries trying to destroy all traces of the technology, but the Santhara had hidden the central control systems beneath their planet's surface. Activating the Great Resonator, Lisa announced as ancient machinery hummed to life around her. "All species with harmonic communication capabilities, please coordinate your broadcasts." The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, every sentient being suddenly found themselves connected to a vast network of thoughts, emotions, and experiences. For the first time in millennia, different species could truly understand each other's perspectives without the barriers of language or culture. Empire soldiers found themselves sharing the memories and feelings of the beings they had been ordered to suppress. Zephyrian commanders experienced the joy and wonder that true communication could bring. Even the most hardened Empire loyalists could not maintain their hostility when they felt the genuine desire for peace and connection that flowed through the Great Resonator. The Zephyrian fleet stopped its attack not because of superior weapons, but because its crews finally understood what they had been fighting against. Many Empire ships switched sides immediately, while others simply withdrew in confusion as their crews struggled to process the flood of new perspectives and emotions. Commander Amy said with wonder in her voice, "Empire forces across the galaxy are standing down. The communication networks are reporting similar effects on every front. It is like the entire galaxy just remembered how to talk to each other." Jake sat back in his command chair and watched as former enemies worked together to establish new communication protocols based on understanding rather than control. The revolution was over almost before it had begun, because once beings could truly hear each other, there was no longer any reason to fight. But Jake also knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had been given a second chance to build something better than what had existed before. Whether they succeeded would depend on their ability to maintain the connections they had just rediscovered and resist the temptation to return to the isolation and fear that had allowed the Empire to control them for so long. The real work was just starting. 6 months after the activation of the Great Resonator, the galaxy had become a place that nobody could have imagined before. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Terra's Voice, watching as ships from dozens of different species worked together to construct the first Harmony Station, a massive space facility designed to serve as a center for interspecies communication and cooperation. The construction project itself was a miracle of the new age. Melodian crystal ships grew the station's framework, using living materials that responded to the thoughts and needs of the workers. Grovikin bioengineers created environmental systems that could support dozens of different atmospheric requirements simultaneously. Lumina energy beings provided power systems that drew from the harmonic resonance between different species rather than from conventional fuel sources. Dr. Lisa Hayes had become the first director of the Institute of Galactic Communication, a new organization dedicated to developing and preserving the diverse communication methods that were flourishing across the galaxy. Her office aboard Harmony Station was filled with representatives from species that had been considered extinct for millennia, all working together to ensure that the mistakes of the past could never be repeated. The transformation has exceeded our most optimistic projections, Lisa reported during the daily coordination meeting. Over 300 previously unknown species have revealed themselves and joined the communication network. Many of them had been hiding for so long that they had forgotten they were not alone. Ben Carter had been promoted to Chief of Technological Integration and spent his days working with alien engineers to develop new tools that enhanced rather than restricted natural communication abilities. His latest project was a personal communication device that every being in the galaxy could carry, not to monitor or control them, but to help them understand and be understood by others. The new personal communicators are ready for distribution, Ben announced. They can translate not just words but emotional context, cultural references, and even artistic concepts between any known species. Best of all, they work by amplifying natural communication abilities rather than replacing them. Amy Rodriguez had found her calling as head of the new Galactic Harmony Enforcement Division, but her job was completely different from traditional security work. Instead of using force to maintain order, her teams used advanced communication techniques to resolve conflicts before they could escalate into violence. When disputes arose between species or individuals, the Harmony Enforcement teams helped all parties understand each other's perspectives until mutually acceptable solutions emerged naturally. Conflict resolution statistics continue to improve, Amy reported. When beings can truly understand each other's motivations and concerns, most disagreements solve themselves. We have not had a single case this month where violence was necessary. To maintain peace, Tony Kim had become the chief navigator for the new Galactic Harmony Fleet, a collection of ships from every member species dedicated to exploring the galaxy and making contact with civilizations that had not yet joined the communication network. His maps now showed thousands of systems that had been hidden from official records for centuries, each one containing unique perspectives and communication methods that enriched the growing galactic community. We have identified 4 additional hidden colonies in the Outer Rim territories, Tony reported. Most of them are eager to join the network, but some are still afraid that this is a trick by the old empire. It may take time to convince them that the changes are real and permanent. The biggest surprise had come from the Zephyrian Empire itself. Once their communication systems were open to the Harmony protocols, many Zephyrians revealed that they, too, had been suppressed by their own authoritarian government. Younger generations of Zephyrians embraced the new communication methods enthusiastically and began sharing their own rich cultural traditions that had been hidden for centuries. Former Empire Commander Vextak had become one of the most effective advocates for the new system, using his knowledge of Empire operations to help identify and free other suppressed species. My people were taught that control was the only path to stability, he explained during a recent gathering. But we have learned that true stability comes from understanding, not domination. The fear that drove our empire is gone when replaced by genuine connection with others. Admiral Peter Kane had been elected as the first coordinator of the Galactic Harmony Council, the democratic body that had replaced the authoritarian Federation government. His first act had been to dissolve all restrictions on communication and declare that every being in the galaxy had the fundamental right to express themselves freely and be understood by others. The old Federation served the interests of a few powerful species, Kane explained to Jake during a private conversation. The Harmony Council exists only to facilitate communication and cooperation between all species equally. No one group can dominate when everyone else can hear their true intentions. But perhaps the most significant change was in how exploration and first contact missions were conducted. When Terra's voice approached newly discovered worlds, they no longer came as representatives of a particular government or empire, but as friends eager to learn new ways of thinking and communicating. Jake had developed protocols that prioritized listening and understanding over any attempt to impose human or Federation values on other species. That their latest mission had brought them to a world inhabited by a species of crystalline beings who communicated through vibrations in the planet's crust. Instead of trying to make them conform to standard communication methods, Jake's team had spent weeks learning to feel and interpret the seismic patterns that carried complex thoughts and emotions through solid rock. First contact has been successful, Jake reported to Harmony Station as Terra's voice prepared to leave the crystal world. The resonance miners, as they call themselves, have agreed to share their geological communication techniques with the Institute. In return, we are providing them with harmonic amplifiers that will let them communicate with off-world species without leaving their underground cities. As Terra's voice departed the crystal world, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that first nervous encounter with the Kethva. The galaxy was no longer a place of isolated species struggling to communicate through rigid protocols imposed by distant authorities. It had become a vast community of diverse beings who celebrated their differences while working together toward common goals. The personal communicator on Jake's wrist chimed softly with an incoming message from his old friend Shardavane. The Melodian Resonance Keeper had become something like the unofficial spiritual leader of the new galactic community, helping species rediscover communication traditions that had been suppressed for millennia. The Great Resonator reports full network stability across all known systems. Came the crystal being's musical voice. For the first time in 3,000 years, every voice in the galaxy can be heard clearly by every other voice. The silence has ended forever. Jake smiled as he looked out at the stars that no longer seemed cold and distant, but warm with the knowledge that they shone on countless worlds where beings were talking, singing, sharing, and truly listening to each other. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy had not been superior technology or military might, but something much simpler and more powerful: the patient art of hearing what others really meant to say. The galaxy had indeed changed, not through conquest or revolution, but through the simple act of learning to listen with genuine intent to understand. And as Terra's voice set course for their next destination, Jake knew that this was just the beginning of a new age, where communication would build bridges instead of walls, and where every voice would be valued as part of the great galactic symphony. In the end, the universe had proven that when beings truly listen to each other with open hearts and minds, they discover that they are not so different after all. The diversity that had once been seen as a source of conflict had become the galaxy's greatest strength, with each species contributing their unique perspective to the growing understanding of what it meant to be alive among the stars.